Just to kind of put the Appalachian State game to bed, we go back over it, and as I told our players, the disappointing thing is we never gave ourselves a chance to be in the game. 4 turnovers in the first half, 4 big plays, then 2 more right in the last minute. They gave them 14 more in the last minute, and now you're paying for pride. You're playing for pride the second half. You're not playing for the game because you've got and then we got our quarterback banged up and had to go with the third quarterback. But we can't do that. We have been the success we have had this year is because we've won the turnover battle, not turned the ball over, playing good sound football, staying close, and finding a way to win the second half. Would have loved to see us play that kind of game and be down maybe 14-0 like we were against Liberty. But we didn't do that. We found out when we turn the ball over, we don't have a chance. We had just watched Appalachian State play Lafayette, and they turned it over 3 times the first half. We're down 21-0. They got beat 49-13. And so we can't do that, especially us, because we're still growing and still trying to win games that by most people's thought we're not favored to win. And so we went over that heavily. The great thing is turnovers are correctable. If it's a deflected pass and it gets picked off because it was deflected, that's one thing. But we had interceptions that should not have been thrown in the way they were thrown, fumbles that you could never have. The last one was really if you take the 28 points they scored off of our turnovers and take the 7 off the board when our guy scored and fumbled on the half-yard line going in, you see a game that the players can, you sit there, well, we gave it a good fair shot. So anyway, that being said, those are correctable. That happens. If it happens to us, we'll lose that ball game. Now we've got to go ahead and now get focused on Texas State. They're and again, we've got to go back and be the best version of ourselves we can be. I think now that we've gone over our mistakes and see that Appalachian State may have been better. No matter what we did, they may still have been better. They were a better football team. But the fact is, we already know by experience, the players do, that if they play well, as hard as they can, and don't make those kind of mistakes, they can play with some teams that are pretty good, like Liberty and teams like that. So that gives your kids, the players, a chance to understand, yes, we worked as hard as we could last week. Yes, we were mentally ready to play. But we can't have turnovers and give up plays like that. So, anyway, so now Texas State, we got to go in here with the same thing. We've got a team. We're on the road, and we're playing a team that they need a victory too. They're looking at us as a W. I guarantee it. They're saying, well, this is a W for us. They're favored for whatever little bit that matters. But we have got to go in there and play our best football game. There's a lot of people. I've answered some questions this week. Boy, on the road, we can't seem to win on the road. 3 losses on all 3 of our away games. I think if we'd have played Kentucky at Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina at home, I'm not sure we would have changed that record one bit. But those are 3 of our better opponents that we played this year, and all 3 and took a beating in the away games. But and I'll say this: the Kentucky, we were just, they were. I'm not sure there was much we could do. But even at the Coastal Carolina, that was the first week we were without Rhett, and Chandler was not ready to play at that point. I think ready to handle it. And then when Chandler went out in the first quarter here, the big Appalachian State's not the kind of team you want to bring Jai in and have him start. But he did a lot of learning on the job. So I'm not as worried about being an away game in the sense that that's a whole different environment, an entirely different environment. And having coached at all the levels as a head coach, 3, 2, 1 AA, 1 Group of 5, 1 Power 5. When you take crowd noise out, we have 80 or 90,000 people when I've coached at LSU. You can't function properly. You can't call plays. You have to be able to work very hard. They can get into your head with the inability to hear the snap and things like that. What we've got to do is go out there and just play our best home or away. That being said, next time we're at home, people keep coming because y'all have done a great job of making whatever we can out of the home field advantage. But anyway, those were my thoughts kind of on the last week's game and what we've got to do to play Texas State. They did not play well last week without their star quarterback. Without him, they weren't the same team offensively, just not the same team. And we have no idea whether we'll expect him to be back and prepare for that. But that doesn't give you a very good reflection of how good they are based on they beat Southern Alabama in overtime. They also won one other game in overtime. The 2 wins they have are in overtime, which means to me they at least don't get too nervous if they're playing a game right down to the wire. And so it should be it's every game's critical for us to have one more than we on the schedule, and this one's our next one up. It becomes big too. Every one of them becomes pretty daggum big.
So what's the status of Chandler Rogers?
Chandler should be ready to play. I'd tell you if he wasn't, or I might not anyway. We don't have. That's a funny thing. You don't have to tell college. I will say this: in college, you have gamesmanship. You don't have to report like in the NFL. Report injuries by a certain date, and we're not necessarily going to do that if we don't have to, because that might affect the way people defend us. But Chandler should be back. He got banged up, and I'm not saying he could not have played in the second half, but I did not see any reason for him to get hit over and over again in a game that we're trying to catch up and make it respectable. 49-7 at halftime. We don't need to get him banged up because Jai is that far down the road in his learning process as Chandler was to Rhett Rodriguez, and so he should be back, and we're counting on that. And don't know when Rhett will be back, but at some point he's preparing to get back too, and that gives us a chance that we need somebody to go in there and calm the position down, maybe, and just kind of get us through a tough situation. We won't push that. That'll be up to the doctors and his mom and dad on that factor. Because again, he's out there throwing ball and working out, and he had an injury that you can't look at him and see the injury, so you never know. It's an internal injury, but it was very serious. So they'll take it as slow as they have to. Any topics or areas that we can think of that I can cover that would let me know as a general stuff to put on the video for people that want to just catch up on,
So, Coach, you do look at Texas State. What concerns you the most about it?
Well, I mean, getting their quarterback and scoring points. I think with Texas State, if you're going to beat them, I think you got to outscore them. I think if when they get their quarterback back, they generally score points. When they lose, they're losing in overtime. They're losing by putting points on the board themselves. I don't think you can not be able to score points and have a chance to beat this team. And we didn't score points early. We've gotten better when you get into a game like last week. Even in the second half with Jaya playing, I think we outscored them 28-10 or 21-10 in the second half. And so we're getting numbers where we need to get them a little more. So I think one thing that concerns me, if the quarterback comes back and he has a field day, that he's had some nice stats there as a starting quarterback, and they've been hard to stop. They are their head coach. I know Dana Holgerson. I met him when he was working with Dana Holgerson at Oklahoma State. I worked a long time with Mike Leach and Dana Holgerson, know them well, and he comes from that mold. We would have said it's a hurry-up offense like nothing we've ever seen, but everybody has copied those kind of guys like Dana and Mike for a long time. And if you want to go back to no huddle at Auburn, at 93, my dad won the national championship with Charlie Ward going fast break the entire game back before some of these guys were coaching. And so it's some, we're up tempo, they're up tempo. Defenses are going to be a key. Starts with their quarterback, I believe.
Coach, what about the health? Obviously had a few defensive
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
down. What are we looking at there as far as
Nick, I think our health situation is depth more than anything else. We got some corners banged up. We got starter back. The other starter probably back. We got one behind him. We lose a couple that played a lot. In my 2 years at Clemson, as I was an analyst, I did crossover studies for Coach Venables on defense. And as I looked at the number of plays, positions played, it's amazing. You wouldn't think it, but cornerbacks quite often play the entire game without coming out. Unusual because you think about the receivers can't come close to that. And so that's probably what it's going to mean. We're going to have two guys, hopefully three, that have played a lot that'll get most of the reps. And so there's some guys that were banged up that should get back. And Mark Williams will not be back. He's out, and it looks like he's out for the year. So he's had a pull muscle in his groin, and it's separated from the bone, which now that's one of those things that's a major muscle tear. It goes from both a pull muscle to a muscle tear, and that's he's done a real good job for us too.
Coach, while you were talking about the cornerbacks, Josh Newton has played awful well. the
Josh
last couple of weeks.
Josh Newton has played very well. Of course, he does well. Sparks is very aggressive. Sparks has a good chance to be back. Josh Newton has done very, very well. And I know Jordan Riley has played. He started cornerback at Akron for a year, and he's going from safety to cornerback. But Josh Newton is one of those guys that's played very, very well over there. Adam Sparks has been very, very dependable, and he loves to hit. That's how he got hurt. Just got a little stinger on his neck, but hopefully he'll be back. But we know that Josh will handle that edge pretty well.